Welcome to this edition of Morgan Asked For podcast. A special guest this week. Trevor is out on work this week, so we call in our replacement hitter that is very gracious and always lends us his time and his opinions that we really appreciate. And Zach Tremmel joins us again here on Morgan Asked For podcast. Those of you that don't know, he's a high school coach and teacher in Sigourney. Several other stops in his career, and Dad's a Hall of Fame basketball coach, right?
Yes.
Yep, and he is in the Hall of Fame. We had good discussion about him and other Hall of Famer Danny Tassel this weekend at your house with family members and other distinguished diagonal people there. So always a great time hanging out. Watch the Hawks pull out the win there at your house on Saturday evening after Tyler's soccer game. Kind of get right to it here. Maybe a little bit shorter this week. Iowa, I'm going to play, I think the highlight of the game here. Zach, I don't know if you watch this on YouTube or Spotify, but I kind of got a new toy here to be able to play video. And so we're going to try that again here, and should play here in just a second. And you can hear the sound and everything.
Touch pass, caught, intercepted. This is Harris, and Harris, touchdown, Iowa!
All right, and so I think that was definitely the highlight of the game for me for the Hawks. Is the first scoring play for the Hawkeyes, and I think I saw that it was 7th straight year that the Hawkeye defense has scored a touchdown. And we're going to get to, they won the game 38-17, I think was the final. But there are some question marks, always question marks at the offense the last several years. But there's some chinks in the armor on the defensive side and special teams. I want to start with the defense here. Obviously, that was a play of the game, get them back on track. But the difference this year, they've already given up 3 plays over 50 yards. Last year, 2 all year. Is there a real problem, and is this going to keep coming up, or is it just personnel, or is it just some mistakes?
Yeah, it's definitely not the same defense we've seen the last 2 or 3 years. The big plays are becoming a problem. And I'm sure you're going to touch on as well. I just don't. The special teams don't seem to be even close to where they were. I mean, you lose a All-American punter. That's going to be a huge difference. But to the defensive side, the linebackers are great. I wish we could put more pressure on the quarterback, and in these big plays are against teams that Iowa State's a formidable opponent. But I mean, how good is Troy really? I mean, we turned one of their players into an All-American. So this is a big week for Iowa. I mean, this is one of their bigger games they've had in a while. If they lose this, this state's gonna, the water's gonna start boiling in this state if they lose this game, because you've got I believe a bye week, and then you have Ohio State, and I don't think a lot of people are going to give us a chance in that one.
No, and that kind of leads into my question here. Iowa, and I think Iowa State plays, and we've talked about this, more similar than anything, but when they were down at halftime, I still did not think they were going to lose the football game. Now, and it was kind of weird. I was watching the highlights and stuff, and I think they were kind of replaying it, and maybe I thought it was a replay. That long pass to the outside, it looked like the exact same play. It was to the exact same person. And kind of the joke is that player is going to transfer to Purdue next year, and then he's going to do the same thing to Iowa again. And a little bit looked like that Purdue offense when they were able to hit those plays. And I got, the real question is did somebody find the cheat code to the Iowa defense, or is it they don't have the players? And we talked about this with Trevor, and I know you listened to us, and I do appreciate that. Is losing Cooper DeJean and how good he really, really was, you can't replace a player like that. did he mask some of the issues just because he was so good that he was able to make plays even when other players were out of position?
Yeah, that's hard to answer. This defense on paper coming in, is going to be one of the better ones that we've had, and I think everybody thought that. And again, we're only 3 games into this season, and we're 2-1, and we lost by a single point. So, we don't know. I mean, in that game, we probably should have won, but the defense does not look as good. And I just, right now, they don't, but, there's a lot of season left. We'll see what they make for changes. But just like every other fan, you kind of over analyze stuff when things don't look like they do. And, our offense is much better, but there's still a lot of griping on that side as well. So it's just the jury's still out on this team. But like I said, this next game I think is huge just for, you know, Ferens, it does not care what the public thinks. I can guarantee you that. But it's just huge for the morale for the team, for everybody, because you lose that and you got Ohio State waiting. That's just going to be a tough 2 weeks to deal with.
You're staring 7-5, 6-6 if you lose this game. I believe you win this game, everything's still in front of you. The Ohio State game is not going to be easy. Most likely going to lose that one. You want to keep it close, but then you're again back going to be in every other game. But you lose this one, and as you said, it's morale. It's just the fan base. You're going to have 2 straight losses, which doesn't happen very much to Iowa. And just and I've got a theory here, and I've heard this, and I wish I could credit who it was, but is there something to it this year that teams are, the old thing was you could never go deep on Iowa. They wouldn't let you go deep. They made you do a 10-play drive without messing up. Because the offense is better this year and teams know they might have to take a shot because Iowa's going to score some points this year, unlike they have in the last couple. Is the threat of the offense being better, knowing they have to score, just going to make the defense a little bit worse just because teams are going to have to take more risks than they have? Teams didn't have to take a risk the last few years on offense because even if they didn't score and they had to punt, they knew Iowa wasn't going to score more than 20. Now there's a little bit of worry there where they might score 30. And so you're going to have to score some points against this defense so they take a shot, whether it works or not. Now, so far, it's worked pretty good for teams. But is that maybe a concern or a reason why that the big plays are happening more, is teams are taking more risk because they have to?
Yeah, I mean, this is just me. I still don't think many teams are real scared of Iowa's offense. I mean, I've watched it for 3 games, and I mean, we have an absolute stud running back, but outside of that, there's a lot of the same things I've been seeing for 3 or 4 years. And I don't know, I don't feel like our D line has put the pressure on the quarterbacks either. I mean, when they go deeper, you got to be able to get to them. But I don't know. I mean, the offense is, yardage wise, scoring wise, they are better, but I just don't think there's a lot of teams that are really truly scared of Iowa's offense. And, we're going to find out real fast when you get thrown into Big Ten play. Is this offense really better, or, is it part of who we've played as well? I mean, I'm not sure how good Iowa State's defense is either yet. There's a lot of questions for both teams coming up here, in my opinion, when you get into Big Ten and Big 12 play.
Yeah, and Iowa State doesn't get into it till next week. They
Mhm.
play another. They have a bye game this week with Arkansas State. And then, really the question that is happening now with the fan base, and it's happened the last few years, and just the struggles. And Kirk Ferentz, is he in this for the long haul? Let's say they do go 7-5 this year. Does that change? Obviously, if he goes 10-2, something like that at 10-2, you could sneak into the playoff, be real close. This team has tons of 5th and 6th-year seniors that will not be back. Next year is going to be I'm not going to say a rebuild, but definitely a lot of players that we haven't heard of. there's a lot of players on this team that we've heard for 3 years. Next year, it's going to be a lot of new players playing in some key positions. Is Kirk Ferentz' tenure coming sooner rather than later, I guess, is my question for you.
Yeah, I'm sure some fans, I mean, obviously the last couple of years we're winning 10 games and 50% of the fan base still wants him gone. And I know you're on the same boat. Like if you're winning 10 ball games a year, nobody's going to fire you. And
No.
I think he could go win 4 games this year and he's still not going to get fired after
No.
this year. It would be more him stepping away just
Yeah.
because he's like, you know what, screw it. I've gave this place everything I've got. I had one bad year or whatever. I don't think they're going to win 4 games. I still think they can, win anywhere from 7 to 9, maybe 10, but it like I said, my outlook is here. We're going to win 8 to 10 games, and I plan on him being back. I think he had to fire his son last year. That would have been the time to maybe go. But I'm still a Ferentz guy. He's done so much. I mean, I think he's the best coach in Iowa sports history. And but like I said, this is a big week. I mean, I'm a huge Hawkeye fan, and I'm extremely nervous for this game. And Minnesota probably hates Iowa more than any school. They want to beat us more than anything. It's a night game. Those fans are going to be tailgating from 8 in the morning on. It's not going to be an easy place to play. And our quarterback play has been atrocious, and that's who I feel like gets affected the most in loud stadiums. So I think the defense is going to have to make a few plays, and we're going to have to run the ball down their throat.
Yeah, Kirk Ferentz is very even keel, but he does not make it any bones about it. He does not like Philip Fleck, as your friend Trent Condon likes to say. And we're getting into that discussion here towards a little bit later in the podcast. But yes, with Iowa, and Minnesota hates Iowa. I mean, they have that chant. I heard someone was saying it as soon as they won last week. As soon as the game was over, they started chanting, "We hate Iowa." And crazy things. I know there's always jokes of what's happened in the Metrodome with Hawkeye fans in bathrooms, and then also Hawkeye fans in 2002 taking down their goalpost and trying to get them out of the Metrodome when the Hawks were undefeated and won a Big Ten championship. Obviously did not go to the Rose Bowl because of the different bowl games, and everything ended up in the Orange Bowl playing USC and Carson Palmer, and Ohio State went on to play for the national championship against that really, really, really good Miami team and pulled out the upset. But just, it's a big rivalry, and I 100% agree. This is a big game, and your quarterback play has to get better. There's whether it's Cade McNamara just has to get better himself, or you go with Brendan Sullivan. I mean, in my personal opinion, and this is what's crazy, and you coach high school sports, I've coached high school sports, no coach purposely puts out the players he doesn't think give his team the best chance to win. Every coach wants to win the football game, and they're going to play the best players. It's why I have a lot of gray hair, but it just baffles me that people really think they don't play people just because of who they are. I mean, coaches want to win, and to win, you have to play the best players that give you the best chance.
Yeah, it's for sure. I mean, the one coaches that may not get to do that are in the NFL when their owners are forcing them to play a
Right.
first round pick, but everybody else is playing for their jobs. Those NFL coaches are going to get told you're going to get fired if you don't start Bryce
Right.
Young when he's not the best. But Kirk Ferentz is putting out the best, and he sees them every single day.
Right.
But that doesn't take anything away from the recruiting. The recruiting is still on the coaches, and they're not doing the job at the quarterback spot, and that's what's got to change.
That is 100%. If that's their best option, or like Marco Linez or Joey Labus or Petrus or Deacon Hill, doesn't matter. If that's the best you got, then that's a failure in the recruiting, retention, development, which is crazy because I don't think there's a better developmental team, program, coach out there than Kirk Ferentz in Iowa. but they cannot do it in the quarterback position and have it forever. It's not just a new thing here. This is not a 2020 to 2024 problem. This has been a problem since 1999 for them, I believe. That's the one position they can't figure out.
It's gotten worse, and even our good quarterbacks. I don't know. I heard a sports talk, even with like Drew Tate, for example. His best year was probably his sophomore year, and then he kind of got worse and worse. Ricky Stanzi. Yeah, I don't know what's, and then I mean, receiver wise, I mean, it's hard to recruit when you don't throw the ball but 7 yards down the field and your quarterback plays not very good. So what receivers are going to come? So it's a problem. And then if the defense starts to shake a little bit in the special teams, all of a sudden, if we become average on those two, then it could turn fast. So, like I said, 3 games in, everybody's going to rush to their judgments after 3 games. And like I said, it was a 1-point loss to Iowa State that we probably should have won the game.
Right.
And everything in Ames is glory right now, and everything in Iowa City is not good. So there's a lot to be played here in the next few weeks to see how. My hope is Iowa State's really good and wins the Big 12, and
Yeah.
and Iowa, can run the table outside of Ohio State, and that gives us a golden opportunity to get in there if Iowa State keeps doing what they do, and our only losses are ISU and Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean that, and Iowa State's wants Iowa to win every game as well. We want Iowa to be 10-2, 9-3, right there in the mix of the Big Ten. That way, in case we lose a game or two, we might have a shot. Because just the way college football has happened, Notre Dame went from essentially a lock of the playoff, I think, and then they lost to Northern Illinois at home. So now they're out. I think there's still a chance, but I think, if they lose again, USC looks good. We'll see. They lose to Ohio State. They have 2 losses, with one of them being at home to Northern Illinois. I think they're out, in my opinion. But again, this is a TV show. 10-2 Notre Dame, 10-2 Iowa State. If they're on the same line, argument who gets in, it's Iowa State's out. I mean, that's just, and I hate that. It's the reality. It is a TV show and it's an entertainment product, and Notre Dame brings more eyeballs and money to TV and the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, these playoffs are, just looking I don't know if you've looked at Northern Illinois' schedule, but they go to NC State, and that's a huge game for Notre Dame. They're going to be pulling for Northern Illinois, because if Northern Illinois wins that, I think they run the table and will be in the playoffs as well. So that would help Notre Dame, and they could probably still lose to USC, because like you said, 10-2 Notre Dame, they're going to, arguably the biggest fan base in the country, and they have people in Chicago, New York that just love Notre Dame. So I was looking at Northern Illinois' schedule, and that at NC State, I don't think NC State's too bad. So that'll be a huge game for a lot. There'll be a lot of eyeballs on that game.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame plays NC State too, with the ACC agreement. I haven't looked. Yeah, let's kind of transition to Iowa State here, and you are 100% right. Everything's rosy in Iowa State land right now, and it's true. And the only difference is that 54-yard field goal is missed, which it's been missed many, many times over the years for Iowa State. And we got completely different conversations.
Yeah, it's like I said, one point changed everything in the state, and like I kind of preached here, there's 80% of the season left, so we're going to find out. And I think Iowa State should come out and take care of business this week, but I don't know much about Arkansas State, to be honest. I know they've kind of played with Michigan for a little bit.
Touchdowns in the fourth quarter to make it close. It was not as close as the score indicated, but we don't know what Michigan is. I think we're going to find out what Michigan is this week. I think USC travels to the Big House, right?
Yes, and that's, like I said, I don't think Michigan's very good either, but we talk next week and Michigan actually beats them. I don't think either one of us would be that shocked at it either. So
no, because we don't know what USC is either. I mean,
there's still a lot of 5-stars on that Michigan roster.
Yeah, and you said it. We still got 80% of the season. The schedules are way unbalanced right now with whose teams. LSU we think is really good, but they struggled to beat South Carolina. How good is South Carolina? They killed Kentucky, who we didn't think was very good, but then they lost only by 1 point to Georgia. So we don't know who's good, who's bad. I mean, if you really want to get down to it. But just more Iowa State, their big question mark is health. And I wasn't a big fan of this bye week so early. Now, the way the schedule works, everybody this year has 2 bye weeks. I mean, Iowa does as well. They're just later in the year. Iowa State plays 2 games and a bye, then they play 5 games and a bye, and then they finish the game. Finish with, I think, 4 in a row after that. They needed it. Their linebackers are hurt. They've got 2 linemen that haven't played yet that are penciled in starters. I don't know if they will because the offensive line has actually done a little bit better than maybe we thought. I think the transfer from Princeton, we need to get him in the game very soon. I don't think you want him. I would have liked to seen him play last week at Iowa just because I think he's better than anybody else we have, but that would have been a big jump up from playing in Princeton. And in your first game, and your first snap would have been inside the 1-yard line at Kinnick. And you wonder, the 6-year senior false started. What do you think? He's a grad transfer, but first time in a stadium holding more than 25,000, I would say, would have done. He needs to do it at home. Next week, we're at Houston. That's not going to be a big crowd. Then you're back home to Baylor. Then you're going to start getting into some of these a little bit better stadiums. You got to go to West Virginia, which is going to be crazy. It's not huge, but it's going to be loud. We need to get some of these guys, see if they can play.
Yeah, then this would be the week too, because you got a opponent that you're 22, 23 point favorites against, and be nice to get them out there, get them some confidence, and just get their feet wet, and then
play them for a half and then sit them the second half. Perfect.
Get into Big 12 play would be ideal.
And Chris Williams and Cyclone Fanatic and Iowa Everywhere, and we're going to talk about that more towards the end too, but what he wants is he wants to see a backup quarterback play and for some extended period of time. Obviously, Rocco Beck seems to be really good. I think he is really good, but you're one hit away from not having him. That's just the reality of football. And we have no idea what the backup, we don't know who, we actually don't even know really who it is. And then neither one of them played. One of them's a true freshman out of Southeast Polk, and one of them's a redshirt, same age as Rocco, JJ Cole out of Ankeny. But neither one of them played any meaningful snaps.
They're not going to get any unless you get up big, though. I don't see him putting them in if it's like a 14-point game. You got to get them down 25, and then he could probably play them a quarter and a half. But
and that's the
hopefully
problem.
You can do that.
They don't. Just like Kirk Ferentz is this way. Let's say Iowa leads 30-7 at half. Well, that's not just a complete, and then they're just going to sit on it, and they're going to be up maybe 38-14 at the fourth quarter. Oh, could you put him in? But that's not. I'd like to see it 50-10.
And then they're going to put him in and hand the ball off 3 straight times and punt as well. Right. So what are you really seeing? That they know the playbook, that they hand it off the correct way?
I agree, but that's the big worry, because just the way the Big 12 schedule the teams have won and lost. Kansas, I thought, was going to be good. They don't look good. West Virginia seemed to be getting better. They don't look good. Central Florida does look pretty good. I think that's going to be a tougher game. Texas Tech doesn't look as good as they did on paper. Houston's not good. Baylor's not good. I mean, Iowa State's kind of got, we don't know, Utah, Cam Rising. I think they're good with him, but if he's not healthy and they play Oklahoma State, that's a big game in the Big 12. Kansas State looks good. Their quarterback's going to get better and better, and we play them at the end. Here's a good stat for you. Cam Rising, so Utah and Oklahoma State play this week. Cam Rising and Alan Bowman, the quarterback for Oklahoma State, who's been at like 4 places, were in the same recruiting class as Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy's in his 3rd year in the NFL. And didn't leave early. He left after 4 years.
That's crazy. That's a huge game in the Big 12, though, between those two. I mean, that's one of them loses it and they're in trouble, especially if they tie and they're the tiebreaker situations. Where's that game at?
Pretty sure it's Oklahoma State.
Yeah, And you
It'll be crazy.
Cam Rising,
Again, it's one of those it's not a big stadium, but it gets loud. They have those paddles pounding on all the pads. They're right there. I mean, I've been there. It's crazy.
man, they don't lose a lot there either. I mean, that's a tough place to play.
Good.
Always good.
And I like him. He's your new, Leach, Mike Leach. Actually, saw a thing today. I think it was 5 years ago, yesterday or today, that he did the superpowers and who would kill each other in the Pac-12 when he was at Washington State.
Yeah.
The Sun Devils, the tree would just get shut down. The duck would wander, lose interest, and walk away.
Yeah.
People like that. And I think Gundy was talking about something. He brought up Connor Stallions, and he just brings up dumb things, and it's awesome because he just doesn't care. He's from there. He's been there 20-some years, and he's kind of out there and just likes to say things, and sometimes it comes back to get him. And then you have like Matt Campbell that doesn't say anything, and it's not good. The biggest thing coming out of Ames this weekend is Matt Campbell wins. He ties Coach McCarney for the most wins in Iowa State history. 37 less games than Coach McCarney. Now, he took over the program in a way different spot than Coach McCarney, and he talked about it on his press conference at how Dan McCarney set the wheels in motion. And Chris Williams, Brent Bloom, all those guys, they truly think Coach McCarney should have a statue in front of Jack Trice somewhere. And I 100% agree. I love him. I worked for him when I was there, around him different times since. And he's just a great person, still remembers things and does, just the great Cyclone. And the crazy thing about him is he goes to a Cyclone function and he's right in the mix of it. And he goes to a Hawkeye function. And he's right in the middle of that because he's from Iowa City, played there, coached there for a long time. He's a Hawk and a Cyclone, and both fan bases are okay with that.
Yeah, he's it's one of the only people that can pull that off, probably. I mean, it's a rare thing. I don't think you're gonna come up with many more.
Because you even think Gable, who wrestled at Iowa State, coached at Iowa State before Iowa, but he's a Hawkeye. He's not. I mean, Now he comes back and he does Iowa State stuff. I've seen him. My brother and my dad do all the wrestling stuff. He does come back and do things, and actually Cale Sanderson does as well. Kind of just a little bit down low more.
I think they're big on promoting the sport of wreshling too.
Yes.
I mean, McCarney's, Iowa football, Iowa State football. Those are his things. And, I agree. I mean, what he took over, Iowa State was a laughing stock. I mean, they would probably have been lucky to be the third best team in the state of Iowa at the time. And then he was able to get them turned around and finally start beating Iowa. And that's when, Iowa State finally got a little momentum going, and it was just hard to write it out. I mean, it was a tough place. I still don't think they had the money, the facilities yet, but without his, engine to get the thing going, they probably would still be a doormat, and he
started the race
for sure.
And so that's the question. Is Matt Campbell the best coach in Iowa State history? I think it's yes. We've had this discussion on our chats and in person, and you think it is McCarney. And I think both are correct answers. I really do. But the facilities and everything are just so much different today than they were with McCarney. And, Gene Chizik gets kind of a bad rap because he left, but he actually recruited pretty good for a couple years. And Paul Rhodes was able to parlay those recruits because you couldn't transfer and do all the things that you can do now. Paul Rhodes won because of Gene Chizik's players.
Well, yeah, Gene. I mean, you can't blame him. I mean, he leaves that
he went and won a
national title.
Yeah, I mean, no, and you couldn't blame, at the end of this year, or if he would have went to Tennessee or Florida State or USC, one of these jobs that he's been rumored for, can't blame him.
Yeah, Iowa State's a lot better off now even than when Chizik left. I was just shocked that Auburn knew something there. They were able.
Well, he was an assistant there before when they went undefeated and with Jason Campbell as their quarterback when they didn't win the national championship and they were 13-0. I can't remember who did, and then he went to Texas where they won the national championship. He was on and that was like back-to-back years, like 2004, 2005. He went like 2.5 years without losing a football game as a part of a coaching staff. So he was the hot shot. I mean, Jamie Pollard did a really good job. He was a hot shot coordinator. Now, he did not win, but he was the recruiting definitely got better. And I think in that situation, Jamie Pollard, they put a lot more money into football at that time. I think they paid Chizik a lot of money. They paid his assistants a little bit more. I think they increased the staff. You look at the staffs when I was there from around 2000 to the staff now, it's 3 times as many people as in the staff. Just all the different outside nutritionists, weight room people, just everything. Yeah. And that's not just Iowa State. That's everywhere.
No, the game's just a completely different. It's mirrors an NFL program this day and age compared to 25 years ago.
All right. And then did you see this today? Speaking kind of that same difference, how it's just so close, that Tennessee is adding 10% to all their tickets next year, and it's a 10%, and they're calling it a talent fee, and it's to pay their players.
I did hear that today on.
I think Rush, so. I don't like it, and I wish they wouldn't do it, but I understand it. And the funny part about this to me is obviously your own fans are paying it. You know, when I renew my Iowa State season tickets, if they added 10% for that, guess what? I'm still writing the check and I'm doing it. But next year Iowa comes to Iowa State, and Iowa State has that, and you want to come to the game. When you buy that ticket for $100, 10% of that money goes to pay Iowa State players. That's what's kind of funny. So you're going to have visiting opponents buying tickets that are paying the players. That's kind of funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not shocking. It's
No.
innovative, and we pay fees on everything, so we'll probably all pay it, and it is what it is. But I don't.
Oh, finish your thoughts. Sorry.
Go ahead. I don't even remember what I was going to say at this point.
Do you like the transparency, or do you think they should have just raised it 10%, not said anything about what it is? I mean,
I'm impressed that they were actually telling the truth on it. So they're just.
I am too. I actually think it's awesome.
Good for them for doing that. But yeah, I mean, and
I
think they said their prices are going to go up every year for the next 5 years too. So, I mean, as long as you're winning, they're going to pay it. And in Tennessee, they're as on the upward trend as any program in the country right now.
And that's where. Did you listen to the Morning Rush this morning?
I did, yes.
Yeah, so that's what Travis was talking about. That they are on fire right now. The baseball team won the national championship. Basketball team is ranked in the top 10. The football team looks unstoppable on offense. They scored like 70 points a game so far. So they are striking while the iron's hot, and I get it. I mean, Iowa State should be doing the same thing, honestly. Their football team's as good as they've really ever been. Basketball team looks like a top 5 to 10 team. The women's basketball program's a top 10. I mean, Iowa State should be doing the same thing right now because their programs are as good as they've ever been.
Yeah, because it's going to be hard if you're, coming off a 3-9 season. Say, all right, we're going to jack their prices up 10% to pay players. People will give the money when you're winning, but when you're losing, that might be the one thing with paying players. It's going to be harder to, I think, to maybe turn a program around. I don't necessarily think just being able to pay them is going to make you better, but I think it's going to be harder to turn some of these programs around, in my opinion.
Right. You're not going to get the everyday person. You're going to have to hit your big booster to say, hey, I know it's not been good, but we need $5 million out of you to get it turned around. So then everybody else will start kicking back in. I think that's what's going to have to happen.
Yeah. And most programs have, 2 or 3 places they can go to in a pinch if they really got to have the money.
Yeah. I mean, and I know Travis brought this up, and you think about Iowa State and even Iowa in this scenario, Iowa State stadium, 66,000. What is Iowa? 75, 80? I don't know exactly.
Yeah, so around there.
Let's just say it's 75. Neyland Stadium's 102. So you're adding, if everybody went 10% on that, they're making way more money every game as long as it's sold out. That's 30,000 more. Let's say the average ticket is $50. It's probably on the low end, actually.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's 30,000 times 5, $150,000 just in tickets every game, and then you got 7 of them. So there's over $1 million. There's one player just in tickets.
And I would say they're making probably closer to $500,000 more a game with this by the time it gets said and done. With because some of those upper echelon tickets
Oh, yeah.
are pricey.
Oh yeah, you think about the suites and stuff, and that's where Iowa State is lacking. They have a few, but that's Iowa State's biggest. I think that's the next thing that needs to happen at Iowa State. The problem now is they've waited too long, and now they do have to pay the players, so there's less money to use for everything else.
Yeah, I mean they're going to have to work through it, but eventually I see it coming as well, though.
All right, now just a couple other college things. Who's your biggest surprise and then your biggest disappointment so far in college football?
Well, disappointment, it's Florida State. I mean, what would they say? Their payroll's $12 million or something, and
Yeah.
and they look absolutely awful. And my biggest surprise probably Tennessee. I mean, they had a lot of hype coming in, but they look like an absolute factory right now to me. But like I said, we overhyped the first 2 or 3 games, but I believe they go to Oklahoma, or is that game it? So that'll tell a lot. If they go in there and beat them by 20 or 30, then they're right there with Texas. I mean, I wouldn't put out Alabama or Georgia. I mean, Texas looks probably like the best team in the country, but like I said, this is a big one for Tennessee. If they go into Oklahoma and beat them by 14 plus, I mean, they're right there with anybody if Tennessee can do that.
There was a good soundbite in that. So Mark Venables, Oklahoma coach, was at Oklahoma right when they got there with Stoops as the D coordinator. And obviously Heupel was the quarterback that won it for him. And Leach was the offensive coordinator. And they're talking that Leach wanted Heupel. And they said, he looked skinny, didn't look like an athlete. I called him skinny and then laughed because he's not skinny anymore. It's like the rest of us that aren't skinny anymore as the older we get. But the other recruit they wanted to bring in was Achilles Smith, who ended up going, I think, to Oregon, and good athlete. He goes, looks the part, does everything. Throws it, spins it. Then you got this little guy from Podunkville, Texas or Oklahoma, and that's who Leach wanted. Leach didn't even want to bring in Achilles Smith, and obviously Heupel came, and Smith went somewhere else, and they won a national championship. So Leach knew what he was doing. It was just kind of funny how that's kind of full circle too, because Heupel was the OC. I can't remember if it was under Stoops or Riley, but then they had to fire him, and because it wasn't going well. It wasn't going good enough. It was going well, but just not national championship contender. And I think he went to South Florida for a year and then got the Tennessee job and has them rolling.
Yeah, I mean, they look really good to me, so I'm excited. I mean, going into Oklahoma is not going to be easy, that's for sure. But I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Oklahoma won. But if Tennessee goes in there and takes care of business fairly easily, they're going to be able to play with anybody. I don't care what conference they're in. Obviously, the SEC is pretty dominant right now, so they'll be right there as one of the top 4, and probably you getting pretty close to an automatic in making those top 12, in my opinion.
Yep. And then the other question: who is the first coach fired in college football this year?
Ooh.
I think it's the Florida guy.
Yeah, I just don't know his contract. Like, I mean, it honestly doesn't matter anymore because they'll pay off anything. But that schedule is so brutal, though. I get it. But it's Florida. You got to win. And I mean, Florida State's coach had last year, so he'll have a little grace period.
Right.
So yeah, you're looking at Florida, and they're going to try and land a big fish for sure. And but yeah, I mean, they're with the schedule they have, they're going to be, if they get to 4 wins, I'd be shocked.
Right. And it's 4 wins would be great. I mean, I think you put Iowa State, who are, definitely top, 4th or, definitely top half of both the Big 12 and Big 10. And they'd struggle to make a bowl game with that schedule.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest schedules I've ever seen. And then you mix it with a team that kind of had they weren't, little turmoil anyways, and weren't going to be great, probably average for Florida at best, probably lower. And then you throw that schedule, and it's just a recipe for a disaster.
And that's a program that's a little bit weird. They've had some NIL collective issues The one guy went there for $9 million and they didn't pay him, and he went to Georgia and they're suing each other. And there's been some issues there with money, which is a little bit surprising. But is what it is.
I mean, Notre Dame, they're fine right now, but if they'd stumble and lose a couple more games and end up, only 8 wins, I could see that. I could see him being gone, and they would try to run down Urban Meyer. Just some of the stuff I've read.
Yep. The rumor is that Florida wants Urban Meyer back too.
Yeah, he'll be a hot commodity, that's for sure.
I love him on TV. He's really, really good. But he was really good as a college football coach. He was not good at Jacksonville, but he was really good in college.
He's phenomenal in college everywhere he went.
And that's, McCarney worked for him and won a national championship at Florida. And he always said, and the reason why he wears himself out is every day is 1,000 miles an hour. And that he's just a super type A personality. And he goes, we won a national title. Everybody went on, a trip for 4 or 5 days after, but it's January 20th and it is go, 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 when it should be just a little bit of a break. Now that's why you're so good, but that's why he wears himself out and physically can't do it. Can only do it 4 or 5 years and has to take a break.
Yeah. And he definitely had some health issues, and I don't know. He is good on TV, so he may stay there. You know how it is, the coaching carousel. We could have a 2-hour conversation on who's going to potentially leave what, but that's for another day.
Any other college things that you would like to talk about?
No, I think kind of the theme here is we both probably agree. Obviously I'm an Iowa fan, but it's a huge game for the Hawkeyes, just for momentum and everything. And as an Iowa State fan, you probably want to come out, take care of business early, and kind of coast to a win in the second half and get ready for Big 12 play.
Yeah, just nobody hurt, score a lot of points. That's the one thing, and some of it's just the way Matt Campbell coaches is there's just never a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not how he wants to play. He doesn't just air it out. I mean, you think about, we're just talking about Tennessee, how they score 70. Ole Miss scores 60 every game. They just throw. They don't care. They want to blow teams out. They want to show people up.
Yeah, and I think that's what Iowa fans would love to see, but I think you start doing that, you're going to be a 7-5 team. So what do you want? You want to try to do that and go 7-5, or average 18 points a game and go 10-2? I mean, I don't know. If we could get if someone could tell me we'll bring an offense in that can score 60 a game, and you're going to keep that defense and that special teams, then I think we'd all sign up, but I don't know how realistic that would be.
Right, just because when you score that many points in those situations, you're scoring so quickly, your defense is just on the field too much. I just don't think you can play that good a defense with that good of offense. I physically don't think it's possible. And I know we've had this discussion in our chat, and Brett just denies that 100%. But I don't think it can work if you have the number one offense that scores that many points. I mean, you have the number one offense, but
I'd like to know, in the last 20 years, who's had
the best,
the number one offense as opposed to the closest to the number one defense, or how?
Right. What was the combined lowest? Was it the 10th offense and the first defense? Was it?
That would be a good stat to see. I'm sure it's doable at some point, but probably not right now.
All right, let's kind of move into the NFL real quick. And I know this is way more Trevor's deal, so and he sent me a whole list. I shared it with Zach. It's kind of funny to look. We're not going to hit every one of those topics. That's Trevor's baby. We're more college and everything else like that. But really just a couple NFL things. Surprise teams, Saints and Vikings, probably two biggest, 2-0, and both with teams, the Saints scoring so many points and who they beat. Then the Vikings, the Giants don't look good. That is what it is. But then beating San Francisco both times, and obviously it was in Minnesota. Brock Purdy is 14-2 as a starting quarterback against the NFC. his 2 losses are both at Minnesota last year and this year. That's crazy. That's a crazy, crazy stat. Are they both pretenders, contenders, one contender, one pretender? What do you think?
That's a tough question. I mean, the Saints look really good on offense. I mean, they went into Dallas and just shredded them. And I don't know how good the NFC is, to be honest. I think they're both contenders at this point. I don't know how you could say they're not. I mean, you'd still probably favor the 49ers, but I don't think the Eagles are anything to write home about. I mean, Dallas has got a lot of hype, but I don't know. I mean, NFL, I'm a Broncos fan, and I feel like our season's over already. So um, I don't know. I don't know how you couldn't say they're contenders. That's the beauty of the NFL. You can turn franchises around fast, and I mean, Sam Darnold looks like a top 10 quarterback now. So credit to him. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baker's playing 2 years in a row. He's played phenomenal. I mean, the Browns with one of the worst deals in the history of sports. If they could just have Baker back, I mean, they'd be phenomenal. Think of all the picks they'd have and the money they'd save. But it just my thoughts on the NFL are I just love how you can turn teams around pretty quickly. And I say that, and then as a Broncos fan, we haven't done squat since Peyton Manning, but I'm hoping we can get that turned around here in the next couple of years.
Well, and as a Bears fan, I'm kind of on that opposite end. Now, we're not there yet, and Caleb Williams looks like a rookie, and he's not. I mean, everybody was like, he's going to be perfect. He's not going to be perfect. He's still a rookie. They won the first game. For as bad, I think, for as bad as the team played, and he played on Sunday night, they lost by 6 to a, I think, pretty good football team in the Houston Texans.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of hype, that's for sure.
And Stroud looks, and you talk about teams that, you trade and do things and can turn a team around. The Bears absolutely fleeced the Panthers.
Huh.
Bryce Young, the number 1 pick, gets benched. He's not even starting anymore. They got, a pick last year, our starting offensive tackle. We got Caleb
got
Williams.
another pick coming next year.
And we got the first pick in this, looks like they're going to be the worst team again this year. So we're going to have like the 33rd pick. So the first pick of the second round this year. And we got DJ Moore, one of our best receivers.
Yeah, and I don't even know how good the Bears are yet, though, is another thing. With all of that, it's like, I don't know. I think the NFC is wide open. I mean, the 49ers.
They've got some issues. And this just goes to show, and this is just a gripe I have, and nobody plays in the preseason anymore. And the 49ers had, Ayuk wasn't practicing because he wanted a contract. Trent Williams wasn't and then all of a sudden they're ready to go week 1. Well, they're not ready to go. You have to, there is something to practicing and getting a hit or two. And I understand there's just so much money involved that you can't risk, getting hurt and being done for the year in a preseason game. But what's the difference of getting hurt in a preseason game and getting hurt in the first game?
Yeah, I mean, if you could, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the answers.
They don't ever tackle. I mean, and that's collective bargaining for practice. I mean, the only time those guys ever get hit is in a game. And I think that's some of the issue with everybody getting hurt.
Yeah, it's tough running a fantasy team this year. I'll tell you that. I'm losing players left and right.
And I do not do fantasy. I did not sign up for any Survivor. And you're in Survivor pools. Are you still alive in any of them?
I have 1 of 4 picks left, and that was because week 1 I used a bye, so I got through off of a bye. You get 1 bye, and then last week who did I pick that won? Oh, I picked Houston. Other than that, because I wanted to pick 2 different teams. I didn't want to use them both, and I lost Baltimore the week before. I had the Bengals lost, and I don't remember who else. So there's only 40. I believe in Taylor's there's 43 out of like 256 teams left already. So I got a good shot at winning something. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, that's the first 2 weeks. The biggest favorites lost.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, the Ravens losing to the Raiders, and then obviously the Bengals against the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then any other NFL? I know you're the Broncos fan, Bo Nix you don't think Bo Nix is the answer?
I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell. I was pretty high up on him in preseason. He looked really good, but he hasn't done squat in the regular season. I think you got to roll with him for the year and see what he can do, though. I mean, that's just my belief how you turn an NFL team around. You got to hit on a quarterback in the draft, and look at Houston. I mean, they got Stroud, and now they're right there as probably, I'd say, power rankings the number 2 team in the league right now behind the Chiefs.
I mean,
It's just, I mean, it's still the Chiefs and everybody else in my opinion, but both of those Chiefs games they could have easily lost. So it's just, I don't know. Good players find a way to win, and Mahomes is, arguably the best we've ever seen.
and that's the thing with Mahomes. Everybody's like, well, he gets there, have some stat or how many interception he throws that gets called back for. Well, one, if he knows there's a penalty already, he just chucks it and makes a play. And then here's, and it was interference. That call was correct. It wasn't like it was a questionable call. But here's what he does. Whether the play is made or not, that ball hits his receiver's hands, and he makes the defense make a play or not make a play. And so, you look at some players, they don't give their guy a good chance. He always gives his guy a chance, and he scrambles but yeah,
they lost their running back, but
he broke his leg.
I think they'll be just fine. I mean, who knows though? That's why NFL is fun to watch though, because it's so unpredictable. I mean, it's tough to win. Even you get in the playoffs, you get, Green Bay went in and just beat down Dallas pretty easily, where everybody thought Dallas was going to win. So it should be an exciting year in the NFL.
It always is, and it keeps getting later and later and later. Pretty soon, we're going to be playing the Super Bowl in March. But the NFL has got it. And you listen to us, and we talk about it with Trevor. The NFL has got the calendar figured out, how to keep them in the front of the news reporting, in front of the sports world all year long. Schedule release. The combine is a huge deal. The free agency is a big deal. I mean, just every month it's something.
Yeah, and every PGA Tour builds their schedule around the NFL, so they don't even have to deal with them. I mean, The only thing that could even run in March Madness, that NFL would always be done before that, because that'd be about the only thing that could probably might turn some channels, but they've got it figured out, like you said, where it's all planned out and they know exactly what's going on. So,
it's going to be, and I don't know if we talked about this with you on here, but that December 20th, my birthday, and then like the 21st, where it's the NFL regular season versus the college playoff, it's going to be interesting to see who wins those time slots.
Would you say the Chiefs are one of the games, or was
yes.
I making that?
Yeah, the Chiefs won. And did you see? And did you see the numbers that came out after week 1? The average game was 21 million people watching. And the highest was like 27. In comparison, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and playing a national championship game was like the highest basketball rating of all time. That was like 9 million. And this was week 1 of a regular season football game. 21 million people average.
You probably have to lean on the NFL in that December game. I mean, especially, if you could get an ideal matchup, maybe, but I don't even know who.
I think if you're at college, you got to put your prime time matchup on Friday night.
Yeah.
You just.
It'd be the power.
If you've got a Notre Dame
Power 5 game.
Yeah, if you've got a Alabama at Notre Dame for some reason, or Notre Dame at Alabama, it doesn't matter. Or USC at Notre Dame, or what, it doesn't matter. If you got 2 big time names, you got to put them on Friday. You can't put them on Saturday, I don't think.
Just don't think you can take the chance.
All right, and then kind of last thing here I want to talk about, and I know you do it as well. You listen to Des Moines, KXNO radio. Now it's the Iowa Radio Sports Network, which I like the premise of it and them being all over the state. But have you noticed that they have a lot more? I've noticed a lot more commercial breaks, and they can't have the deep conversations that they've had.
Yeah,
they cut the callers off a lot. Their guests aren't on it near as long. That's my only downfall to that.
Well, you can just tell by the podcast times, because obviously you probably listen to it later too. They're like 38 minutes and 40 minutes for the hours, and it seems to go really, really well. We both listen to it at a higher speed, but
and I listen to it at double time.
It goes a lot faster, and it's a good listen. I wish they would go longer, just because they can make a 2 hour.
Right.
2 hour listen goes pretty fast.
Travis and Ross could go forever. And I like listening to them on the Hawkeye sound off, because they get off topic, and especially when games that don't matter or there's not a big topic, they start going off on their own tangents.
Is that on podcast?
Yes. So you can find, if you go to iHeart and then you go to WHO, you can find the podcast, and they have it by the hour. It's 3 hours or 4 hours, and you can listen to it by the hour.
Okay. Yeah, they're very good. They work together. They just work off of each other really good. And but yeah, I've noticed I feel like there's way more commercials now, and which sucks, because it takes away content that we were getting as listeners.
Yeah. And then, Mike, I listen to Cyclone Fanatic stuff, obviously, and that's Chris Williams. But then, do you listen to the Iowa Everywhere stuff as well, where Keith and Andy went, and Chris Williams and then Chris Hassel has a podcast twice a week, and Murph and Andy have moved there. And that's what's nice about those, is they're an hour long. It's a full hour. There's no, kind of a couple minutes of commercials in the beginning of it. But yep, I got you back there. Sorry.
Okay.
But they have the commercials at the beginning and kind of at the end, but in the middle, it's all just them. And there's no, they promote stuff and everything, but it's pretty good. And Hassel is, he's the Hawkeye guy, but he lets them have it. And they do they have like a Legend and Leaders, which is David Eicholt and there's a Hawkeye thing. And then there's a Big 12 one. There's just several different. Now Murph and Andy are on there Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And they have Instant Iowa, like Chris Hassel, and then the producer, Andrew Downs, does an Instant Iowa. So kind of before sound off and before all that stuff's on, they do a thing. And you can do that, watch it on YouTube, or they do release it in podcasts as well. They do a lot of good stuff. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, doing more of this stuff at the bottom and overlays, and I'm trying to pick up and figure out what they're doing. I know I use the StreamYard that we're using. I know they use the same thing. I'm trying to get a little bit better at some of the production value of this.
Are all of these that you're talking about on this Forever Iowa? Is this
Iowa Everywhere? And then
Iowa Everywhere.
Yep.
Okay.
You go to podcasts, and like how I have it, just comes up every day. There's usually something.
No, I don't. The only Iowa podcast I listen to is Washed Up Walk-Ons, and they're pretty good. That's who but I'll definitely look into it. But the Walk-Ons,
and then you can pick out the ones that you like, and don't listen to the ones you don't. And but they do the instant one. They just started this year, so they've only done it 3 times with the games, and it was funny because obviously Iowa State won in the last second, so they were on, and they go as soon as the game's over, they start. And so they were obviously on talking about it, and they were probably trying to kind of plan the show, for 5 or 10 minutes before the game was over. And then all of a sudden the game switched, and they went from winning to losing, so they had to change their show. It was kind of funny to listen to them.
Yeah, check that out.
Yeah, it's good. I can send it to you too, but
yeah.
We're about an hour tonight. And I know you're kind of a high school, and we've done some high school stuff. Sigourney, big win against Mid Prairie last Friday, or was that more of expected, and maybe they shouldn't have been down to start with?
No, they were two very even teams. I think it was kind of a coin flip going in. We got drilled by PCM week 1, but PCM is very, very good, and we bounced back with wins over Mediapolis, who's always good, and then went to Mid Prairie on their homecoming and pulled one out. So I think now we bounce into district play, and I think we'll be hard to be beat in our district.
Yeah, so Sigourney's just going to be right back. They just a football factory. At Tummo, where I coach, we're much better. Watched a little bit of the games are on YouTube, and that's it's good and bad. It's really nice. I can sit here on a Friday night if I'm not at an Iowa State, or even if I am up there at Iowa State, pull them up on your Roku player and all that, and you can watch all the games. It's kind of nice, but yet you just don't get the Friday night feel going to it and everything. Bulldogs are a lot better. They play Oskaloosa this week. Oskaloosa struggled so far this year. Bulldogs should win that one, but rivalries you just never quite know. And it's up here at Oskaloosa. I'm 99% sure. I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Ottumwa. Just looking at their scores, I think the Oski will have their hands full with Ottumwa on that. But like you, yeah, as well. Jordan plays JV, so we'll watch JV, and then sometimes it's nice just to go home and listen to our announcers and watch the Sigourney game on the Thunder Country app, where they have about 10 different high schools on there where you can go through.
Tom was one of them. Yep.
Yeah, they are. So, it makes it pretty easy to watch. I mean, the other night, like even at Keokuk, they put all their games are live on Huddle, and then I got on there and you can see there's hundreds of schools that play everything live. You might not have announcers, but you can watch a Grundy Center 7th grade volleyball game on there if you want. I mean, there's
Ottumwa, you can go watch. I know that on our website, Ottumwa's website, or I don't know, one of them. The 8th grade football played on Monday or Tuesday. You can go watch the 8th grade football game. And I know Pella, where my kids go, and Paige helps do the video and some of the production stuff with that. They have 7th grade, whatever. And again, there's no announcers or anything, but it's just that Huddle video, or whatever video they have that just follows it and does it. It's really great for people that can't get there. Yeah,
you're living in Florida or something and you got grandkids playing, you can watch. It's crazy. You can watch about everything this day and age.
Well, and we deal with that, obviously with, Tyler's grandma and grandpa living in Missouri. They can't get back as much. My parents try to get to every game, but even when they can't, the Game Changer app is another one that, use for baseball, and you can use it for basketball. I mean, you use it for anything, and people are able to watch it and stuff. So,
yep. Technology's crazy this day and age.
That's probably the best thing that's happened because of COVID is everybody realized you didn't have to be somewhere to follow and do things and see it.
It's changed TV. I mean, the way they run sports talk shows on ESPN and stuff. I mean, half the time they're not even they're never in the studio with each other. They're just kind of popped up on the screens, and it works amazing. You can't even tell the difference.
Right. And right or wrong, sometimes even you get some of those ESPN Plus broadcasts, and I know Iowa's not on those, but Iowa State's on one this week. There's a good chance that those announcers aren't even in Ames.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they still do that. And I think, was it Fox Sports 1 or something had a game too that they weren't at, that somebody was complaining about. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy. There's still some of that. And I know in basketball, when they do those, they don't send people all the time for those ESPN Plus games.
So they're just watching it, and then they just kind of delay it enough to get it lined up with the game?
Just like they did in COVID when, each of them would be in their basement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. Be like you and me calling a game from our house.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, nope. Again, always thanks for coming on, Zach. And we do appreciate, you listening and helping us out, and always giving us a little bit of crap when we do something wrong or say something wrong or we disagree with. And Trev and I both laugh at that. We kind of have a chat that we go back and forth, and we're like, well, Zach won't like that or whatever. It's kind of funny.
Oh, yeah.
No, but thanks a lot. And again, I'm sure we'll call on you. If you ever just want to be on, make sure you just let us know. We'll add you. We can get all three of us on here. Might be a 3-hour podcast, but that'd be okay sometime.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yep. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you later, Zach.
Bye.